Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Manhattan Mercury bench. I'm Brady Bowman.
I'm Jeremy Roberts.
You got that right on cue. That was good.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. Well, this is our inaugural webisode of the bench, so I'm excited. I think you're excited.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff planned this week. We're going to go over some of the best stories from this week and regional Midwest news. K-State, Kansas City Chiefs.
They're not bad.
Yeah, no,
But they're good.
no, that's what they're saying.
What is that supposed to be?
No, it's still not settled. There's still some discrepancy out there. People who want the Chiefs to lose every week because they think they're frauds. But we'll get to that later.
That we will. But let's go ahead and get to K-State football. A big win for the Wildcats, moves them up to 3-4 and 2-3.
No, they are.
That was their first win. That was right.
Their first conference win. So they have now won one of their 4 conference games. They played 9 total, so they're halfway through it. A little, 9.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing, though, for this team is just get a win. Because they had not had a win before this game against West Virginia. Their last win was what?
Louisiana and UMass.
Right, and not very big heavy hitters.
So. No, and those games weren't really close. They were handled. But you look at the Texas game, you look at the Oklahoma State game, you look at the Baylor game, all those games were winnable in the fourth quarter. They were all one-possession games, or K-State had the lead in the fourth quarter. And it's just, this team's so young, and they're so inexperienced, and even the coaching staff, from what I think at least, hasn't found the team's identity even in their play calling. Like, they're not uniform in this. I feel like that there's, with the quarterback situation and the changes in opinion and the things they've been doing, it feels like they're almost 2 teams playing half a game each.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing against West Virginia is that they finally finished out the game. They were just a couple turnovers from beating Baylor, which would have been huge. I mean, this is a team that everybody says is a dark horse. If everybody above them loses, could be a national title team. So very big for them to even be close in that game when nobody. I mean, I didn't have K-State close in that game. I thought it'd be.
Really?
No, I thought it'd be like 50-7.
But West Virginia is one of those. You're talking about West Virginia, right?
No, I'm talking about Baylor.
Oh, okay. No, so you're one of those people that's like number 1 offense. I'm really impressed. See, I know Baylor's good. I know they're fast. I know they're good.
Right.
But I wasn't one of those people that was 100% sold on them being the best offense in the country. Like, to tell me they're better in Oregon.
Well, I mean, that's not to say that the K-State defense didn't play well. I mean, obviously, they played well.
And obviously, defense
but to stay
has
on
been a question so far in this point, too.
Right. But to stay on point, we don't want to get too much talking about Baylor.
Yeah.
The big thing was that, against Baylor, they had turnovers that cost them the game. Against Texas, they had turnovers. Against, who was before Baylor? Oklahoma State. They had key turnovers.
In the fourth quarter.
Right.
Several.
When they had the lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, several in the fourth quarter. A chance to win the game with the ball in the hand several times. Turned it over.
Right. So to me, that was the biggest takeaway from the win against West Virginia is that they finally came alive. And a big reason that, nice little segue we already have here, is because of Jake Waters, who had his best game of the season.
Now that's the topic of discussion all Wildcat fans have been hot on. I mean, it's really divisive. It's almost like Twilight.
It is. I was about to say Twilight.
It's like Twilight all over again.
It's like Team Jacob and Team Edward.
Yeah. And
football.
I saw something on Twitter the other day that kind of caught my attention, and it was something along the lines of...
Was it the Twilight fan page?
No. Oh. No. It was something along the lines
I don't know. I mean, I'm not here to judge.
I'm not Team Waters. I'm not Team Sam's. I'm Team...
K-State?
No. It was Team... Or no, I'm not Team Life. I'm not Team Waters. I'm Team...
Oh, Team Life Water. Life Water, like the drink.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, yeah.
But, this really does kind of throw a horseshoe into things, though, because before this game, I mean, it was almost looking like Sam's was going to run away with the starting quarterback.
I'll say, after that Oklahoma State game, Waters did not have a good game. That was
even though it was Sam's turnovers at the end that cost us.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing is like you can't say, oh well, if we just would have kept Waters out of the game. But I want to point something out. Waters has started every game for K-State.
That's true.
He has taken the first snap. In Oklahoma State, he hardly played at all. But he came out for the very first snap in the 20, and he ran one play. And then Sam's came in for a bunch.
Well, and that was the thing about this Iowa State game that caught my eye. That again, like you said, Waters has had to start the whole way, and he gets to start against West Virginia. First snap's a fumble, and everybody in the stadium, you and I were right there in the sidelines. everybody in the stadium was just a collective crowd of here we go again.
Yeah, and you could hear the whole stadium just kind of like, the mood was like, oh, and then you started hearing the rabble and the like, get out of here, or the like.
Well, and that's why Waters is the story of the game, though, because I think the interesting thing
that's adversity.
If we compared the two emotions, your thoughts on Jake Waters after that play and after the game, you're getting two different responses.
No, and even after the things Waters did in that game, and let's not discount Sam.
He was 8 for 8.
He threw the ball 8 times, and they all were complete.
Yeah.
There's something to say for a complete pass, period. No matter where it is. I don't care if it's a 2-yard pass or a 50-yard pass. You complete the ball. That's not to the other team. That's an improvement from what was going on. So, I mean, that goes back to what I was saying about this team being so young. This team is so young, they're prone to make those mistakes. They're just like, well, I only have 5 minutes left. I need to score now. And they'll throw it deep, and the defense is waiting for it. 3 guys standing there, my ball. So,
well, I think
now I saw Sam throwing a lot of little out routes, a little short 2-yard passes.
No, he was 8 for 8.
Because they took away the short run, and they took away the deep pass for him, because he can't throw it that deep yet. So,
well, I mean, I think people would say we haven't seen him try to throw deep.
Go watch the Oklahoma State game.
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, he has some throws that are off target. Between Waters, I mean, that's the whole thing about the debate anyway. Between Waters and Sams, I think it's no debate among most people that Waters has a better arm. I think everybody.
Oh no, he can zip it.
Yeah. The other thing to take from this game, though, when it comes to the Sams and Waters issue, is that Sams didn't run the ball very well, and we were able to show that okay, if you stop Sams, well now you do have to face Waters more. And that's where Waters can get in and actually, I mean, it's kind of the perfect storm for Waters to show what kind of quarterback he was, because Sams wasn't running the ball.
Well, when you talk about the dual threat quarterback system, when you have one quarterback can do one and one quarterback can do the other in terms of running and passing, you run into a problem. Whereas the defense sees Waters in, number 15, they're like, all right, drop everyone back. Whereas they see Samson, they're like, all right, bring everyone into the box. And that's why it wasn't working early on. It's because we bring in Waters for 3rd and 15, and he would be cold, wouldn't be in the game. And he'd throw a 15-yard pass that would sell 5 yards over his receiver.
Right.
And you're like, what are we doing here? Whereas Sams comes in there, everyone's like, oh, all right, he's going to run an option either to the right or to the left. You know, like, everyone's stacked aside. So, like, it was important that Sams be able to throw the ball. It was important that Waters establish that he can run.
If Sams could throw the ball even half as well as Waters, we wouldn't even be talking about this right
now. And I guess that says a lot about how well Waters throws the ball.
No,
Sams isn't terrible at throwing the ball. He's good. He can throw the ball.
But one thing we do have to remember, though, this was the first game in quite a while that you have Tyler Lockett and Tremaine Thompson healthy, and that helps anybody. Yeah, that would help me. Put me behind center, and I have a better chance of being successful.
What is the strength of Jake Waters? It's the deep ball. The deep ball, that is what he does best.
Right. Right. Yeah, we're in agreement. Yeah.
2 steps, looks downfield, floats it in the lanes only. And I have a clip of one of the receptions in this West Virginia game where the defender jumped up there and got his hand that far from the ball, and it landed right in Lockett's arms. Like, that far from the ball. He jumped. Perfect defense.
And we were right there in the end zone?
Yeah. Perfect defense. And the defender couldn't reach it.
His deep throws were great. His deep throws were incredible.
It was.
It was only where the receiver could catch him. And the thing is,
that's what separated K-State in that game, was those deep throws.
Well, Lockett's not a tall guy. I mean, you really got to zip that in there.
No, he floated it.
Yeah, it's not like one of those situations where you have like a Terrell Owens type, where you have a big guy that you can just throw it up, and he's so big that
he'll jump over.
Right.
This wasn't like a tall 6'8" receiver.
Lockett's great, but he's good for his route running and speed, not necessarily.
Yeah, he separates from the defender.
Exactly.
And Waters just put it right where he needed to be.
His hands were great, and it's footwork.
Yeah, we had 3 incompletions the entire game, I think.
Right.
And Sam's was 8 for 8. So Waters only had 3 incompletions.
Right.
That's throwing down the field.
Right. And let's not forget the defense, though, in all this. The defense was great towards the game. They got some fumble recoveries. West Virginia had some turnovers.
That's another story of the game, because you go back to that North Dakota State game, and they gave up that 8 or 9 minute drive at the end of the game when K-State had the lead, and they lost the lead with seconds remaining on the clock. And they were all in 3rd down conversions.
Right.
It was 1st down, 2nd down. Okay, we stop him here, we can win the game. Didn't stop him. Okay, and do it again.
And a lot of Waters' completions were 3rd down throws that were just huge. He just, it's going to be interesting for Iowa State, which we will get to. But let's talk about speaking of some of the footage you got.
Yeah.
We were both right there when the Willie mascot, or the other Willie,
Oh yeah.
dressed in West Virginia gear, got his
So
concussion.
and recently, just been getting hit, slamming into these.
But we've done this for years.
Yeah. Well, for years K-State has done this, and for years the hits have been getting harder and harder and harder. And at first it was just like, oh, like he fell down, but now it's just full on perfect form tackle. Get that guy on the team because he's doing it right.
Well, I told you after the game that I was watching Willie come out, and this is something I've seen so many times before. We both have, and I was just thinking, I was really shocked nobody's got hurt yet. I wonder when that's going to happen. Oh, there it is.
Well, and that's what happened in this event. Someone was dressed as a Mountaineer, a West Virginia fan, with the coonskin hat, and he was standing in the middle of the field with his arms spread.
Yeah, just like usual. I mean, anybody that's
And then he got hit right in the front in a perfect regulation NFL coach tackle.
Yeah, I don't think Roger Goodell would find it.
No, that was textbook. That is how you tackle
That's how you're
to
supposed
do it
to tackle.
safely. But this guy's not wearing football pads.
No.
This guy is just a regular guy getting hit by a guy in football
His
pads.
only protection's the coonskin hat.
And
That's not going to know.
No, and so when this guy got hit, it was. I mean, at first no one realized what was going on. He got hit. He landed on his back, on his back and his head at the same time, and that's just a lot of force. I saw Sports Science one time that talked about how the body slam is one of the strongest, most forceful hits in like all sports, and that's basically what that was.
Yeah, here he comes. Same thing as usual. Crowd goes nuts.
See, he's standing in midfield here.
Here comes Willie.
Out of nowhere.
Oh my God.
And that just, he bounces off the turf.
It's bad. I mean, it's like I said. I'm shocked that it hadn't happened before.
And here's the thing, at this point, even you were right there with me when this was being filmed, and even you said, like, he's really committing to this.
Yeah, I thought he was just acting. I was like, oh my God, this is.
Because that's what they usually do. They usually act like they're dead.
No,
Well, I know, and that sounds bad.
No.
But at this point, right after Willie runs away, usually the other guy gets up and runs off too.
Right.
But
well,
he didn't. He just laid there.
When I told you, when I went up to you, it's like, oh my God, he's really selling it. Because I was really thinking, oh, this guy's really selling like he's really having convulsions and maybe has a concussion. Boy, this really looks like, oh, it is that. When you see, it was that West Virginia coach on the sideline who saw
Yeah,
first.
he was laughing at the skit, being like, "Oh, that's funny. You're tackling our guy." And then he saw what was going on, and he pointed it out to another staff member, and that's when people started running out. Saying it was a big deal, and he got better. You can see he woke up, and they took he stopped his C's, and they took him in the ambulance.
If he could say his ABCs right now, and that was like 3 days ago. The bottom line is that they're probably never going to do that again. That they're going to have
Based on what I've heard other people say, that seems to be the smartest, like common sense thing.
Yeah.
They can't do it, because if they do, what if they get hurt again and again and again and
Right.
again? And just because it hasn't happened in years ever.
If you want a concussion, play football. Not pregame.
It's a violent sport. That's what
Yeah.
I said earlier. It's a violent sport.
What do you think they should do instead?
There's so many things they could do. I mean, they
really need to change a lot of things. Let's be honest. The K-State pregame tradition's kind of been like the same since I can remember.
Yeah.
And
10 years ago it was
my first season was the Ron Prince season as a student at the K-State.
His first season.
Yeah, I've been around here a while, and it hasn't changed since then.
And we've had a head coaching change since then.
Well, yeah, of course, but the point is they need to do something different.
Well,
obviously.
I'll tell you, way back in the 2000s, I saw some games, and there were some good ones. I remember a homecoming with Iowa State where they were themed. Willie used to drive this little purple Prowler around.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in a long time. I don't know where that went.
Well, the Prowler was kind of 90s.
Okay,
kinda,
well, he used to drive this.
None of the young kids are gonna know what that Prowler is.
It was a little miniature Prowler. It's a go-kart kind of, but it was a cool little Prowler, and they dressed it up to be like an X-wing for like the Halloween game.
They'll think it's a PT Cruiser probably. I'm saying yes to all that. Let's do it.
We used to, and this was just
right.
what
We can do it again.
What you saw recently is an escalation of events over time, of just doing that so much and being like, we need to do it harder than last time, better than last time. We need to really get them this time. And
well, I mean that's, but I think that's the whole thing about this is that why they're not going to do it again is because it's too violent.
Well, we don't know they're not going to do it again, but I mean,
You'd
you'd be surprised. But there's no confirmation on that. There's no comment. K-State's been asked. We haven't heard anything on
The
that.
guy nearly died. I don't think they're going to do it again.
Well, we don't know that, but it looked bad.
It looked awful.
It looked terrible, and it was in the middle. It was in center stage, moments before a national televised game, in the middle of a stadium that had 50,000 people looking straight at that direction.
Yeah.
Like this is the spotlight could not.
And I was like 10 yards away, and I saw the guy shaking. It was bad. They can't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, I agree with you.
That's all I'm saying is throw some Star Wars in there.
I think there should be a little bit.
Every game. I want every pregame to be Star Wars themed.
I think there should
A
be
lot of people probably disagree with me on that. But
I think there should be a little bit more creativity. In
oh,
all
Star
the
Wars
sketches.
is very creative.
Well, not just that. You're gonna do Star Wars every episode. I'm just saying
No,
a little
I
bit
wanna
more
do everyone.
creative.
Everyone's Star Wars.
All right, I'm editing this out.
No,
this
we're
whole
no,
this
we're
whole
keeping
part.
it in. We're keeping it in. All right, looking ahead to this weekend, Iowa State comes into town. A team that is struggling. They have not won in the Big 12 0-4, 1-6 overall. But it doesn't matter what the record is. It seems. I mean, this was a K-State team last year that was eyeing a national championship run, and it was still a close game. It doesn't seem to matter.
And it's consistently been a close game in all the matchups, despite the talent disparity, or despite the rankings, or despite how one team is doing and the other is doing. They could be at the opposite ends of the spectrum, and they will always play a close game. I actually believe that the fans had come up in the recent years since the Arrowhead series.
And I think that was big to have that neutral side.
Yeah, it didn't sell as well as they'd like, so they canceled it. But it was an interesting thing, and it could have. I think if Iowa State was a better team and K-State had a better record at the time, that could have been huge.
Right.
It didn't sell tickets at the time, but. Aside from that, since then, because those games were close, there's blocked extra points that won games,
Right.
and
I remember that one.
They were great games. Those games started fans on both sides to call it
Farmageddon.
Farmageddon.
Yes.
And
But it does kind of make sense. I mean, K-State has a big ag background, and of course,
no, it's a
Iowa
great
State's
name.
a huge agricultural background. So, it kind of makes sense that in both state schools. So
No, and they're very similar schools.
Right.
They
Yeah,
are
they are.
very similar. And I think it should be a rivalry. There should be a trophy that we have, the
Right.
Farmageddon trophy with a tractor on it or something.
Why not? Why not?
It's the guy with holding a football and a tractor.
But along with those types of similarities, I mean, Paul Rhodes is kind of a very similar Bill Snyder type guy, though, too. I mean,
They love him there.
At
He is Bill Snyder to them.
At the press conference, remember Bill Snyder was saying, well, he's a better coach than I am.
Well, yeah, and you saw some people around the room kind of scoff at
Well,
that.
of course.
The
Of
reporters,
course.
they're
But,
like,
yeah.
how's he say? But of course he's going to say that.
Well, I
But
remember that win against Oklahoma State. When I believe
do you
Oklahoma State
remember?
was number one.
Do you remember them beating Nebraska? Iowa State beat Nebraska at Nebraska. And
I don't recall that.
Nebraska had like 8 turnovers in that game, and,
Right.
and Iowa State won the game.
When was that?
Their last year. It was Iowa State or Nebraska's last year.
Oh, right.
12, right
So
before.
not the mid-90s Nebraska.
This is Paul Rose hasn't been there that long. If you
Right,
remember,
that's
Auburn's
exactly. That's what I
Gene
was thinking.
Chezik
That's what I was thinking.
was there before.
Right. No, I remember, yeah.
No, and Paul Rhodes, after that game, this is why this story is important. There's video of him doing this. He went into the locker room after he beat Nebraska at Nebraska, and he almost cried, and he just said, "I am so proud," and his whole team like screamed and got up.
People tired everywhere. You got people sore everywhere. I couldn't be proud. I could not be proud. No, I am so proud. Listen to me. I am so proud to be your quarterback.
Yeah, it was crazy,
Yeah.
and we talk about EMA at K-State, every man a Wildcat.
Right.
That was every man a Cyclone. That was EMAC.
Oh, my God. Are you going to start coining EMAC?
EMAC. That was
Go
EMAC.
ahead, Iowa State. You can have it.
EMAC.
We're not going to charge you anything for it. I hope to hear EMAC in the stands.
Oh, they have a lot of EMAC for Paul Rhodes.
Don't start saying it like it's a thing.
No, Paul Rhodes is full of EMAC.
Okay, all right. That's enough of the EMAC. Nonetheless, Paul Rhodes and Phil Snyder both have a lot of mutual respect for each other, and they coach very similar. They kind of get the same type of blue collar guys that maybe or the second best guy in their state. Maybe didn't have that big spotlight on him like whoever the best guy out of Texas is. We usually get the second best guy out of Texas. Who's still pretty good.
And when you say blue collar, what you're trying to say is hard worker.
Right.
So you're saying these guys are guys that are disrespected at one point or another, and they're saying you know what, I'll show you.
Right.
And Iowa State is a lot like that.
Right.
Every year, they always beat someone that everyone says they could not even come close to.
Right.
You remember Oklahoma State's championship run that was shot down because they lost at Iowa State.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely some similarities there, and I think that's, if there's any reason why it's always a close game, there you go. I mean, two places that are very similar location and coaching style and kind of that blue collar attitude. It makes sense.
Yeah, and this is an Iowa State team that is much better than their record shows.
Well, a 1-point loss, was that at Texas?
No, that was at Iowa State. But if you watch the end of that game, I know you missed that game, but at the very end, there was 2 fumbles that Texas had within the 5-yard line on a goal line stand. 2 fumbles. The Iowa State recovered both of them. And the first one was iffy and you could give to Texas. The second one was definitely Iowa State. And the refs gave it back to Texas anyway.
And that's so Iowa State. It seems like every big game they're in, there's always some sort of weird call that either favors them and it shouldn't, or they get screwed.
Yeah.
And
And that was the game where Paul Rhodes went
crazy.
into the press podium after the game and was just, he couldn't say anything bad about the call.
Right.
But he went in there and he just kind of angrily said he's really proud of his team and they deserve it and they got to take it away from him. Take it away. And so, yeah, it's a very passionate team. They care. Right. They can have 0 wins and they will care.
It never matters what their record is.
No, they always have fans in the stands. That place is always loud, and they always care. Always.
Well, speaking of Armageddon and talking about Arrowhead, there's another great segue to talk about the Chiefs.
Well, what a surprise that is. Now, you try to say it's not a surprise.
We've talked about
But this is a worst to first scenario here. We're talking possibly...
It's happened before.
The greatest worst to first, I think, ever.
See, it's up there. I'm not saying it's not.
It has the potential to be the greatest worst to first scenario ever.
Well, that's something we'd have to research a little bit more.
I want anyone, you or anyone, to give me an example of someone who went from the absolute worst to the absolute best, like in one season. That's just, and you don't have to think of it now. This can be something we discuss in the comments.
Right.
But I can't think of one in my head.
No, because I was looking this up the other day.
So I know there's bad teams that had marginal seasons and they did really well the next year. Like Tampa Bay did that, I believe. There's some baseball teams that have done that. But I've never seen anyone just be abysmal like Kansas City was last year. I know part of that was the injuries, and part of that was...
Well, and one thing to remember, though, about the Chiefs last year is that when it came to Pro Bowl selections, they had the most Pro Bowl selections out of any team in the NFL. A lot of that was on defense. But I think a lot of people...
Even though they got blown out...
Why I'm saying I'm not necessarily surprised that Kansas City is undefeated is because they have the pieces in place. They had the players to do it, obviously. They had the most Pro Bowl selections and at key positions. Their problem was the quarterback position. They solved that with Alex Smith, who was a winner, but he was a winner before. He was a winner before coming into Kansas.
Yeah, there's a graph I saw in the last game that showed his record over the last 3 years or 2 years. He had like 5 losses in the last 2 years.
His winning percentage in the last, I believe, 3 or 4 years is better than Tom Brady, my boy.
Oh, yeah. We all know you're a Patriots fan.
Exactly.
Now everyone
Been
else
so
does too.
since 96. I got a Drew Bledsoe rookie card from my elementary school crush. That's where it starts. I love people.
You've never been to New England. All right.
I will be soon. I will be soon. I'm a Bledsoe guy through and through. Next episode, I'll wear my Bledsoe jersey.
Well, maybe one of these days we'll let you explain in a memory segment why you root for a certain team. That'd be something we could talk about sometime.
We could.
All right.
Nonetheless.
No, the Kansas City Chiefs have done very well. They are the only undefeated team.
That's where we were at. That this is a guy in Alex Smith that came in who has proven that he could win. So they fix that, get in a winning quarterback.
What about the coach?
And then they bring in one of the best coaches.
Now that's
in
a whole
the
other
last
story
20
in
years.
itself. I don't think there was a person in Kansas City that they said Andy Reid is coming, and they were like, ugh. No one did that.
It was clear.
Everyone was like, what? Are you kidding? How'd that happen?
Well, remember, Andy Reid's a guy that at Philadelphia went to 4 straight NFC Conference Championships.
Yeah.
He went
to the Super Bowl.
In one of them and lost to my Patriots. But I love that.
Donovan
Oscar
McNabb.
Garcia, if you're out there, remember, your team lost to my team. He'll love that. But point notwithstanding is that this is a guy who knows how to win. He was one game away from a Super Bowl in 3 tries, went to one and won and lost. But he's a guy that's proven that he can be there. I mean, he can arguably be maybe a handful of plays away from being a head coach that has 3 or 4 rings on his fingers.
Yeah.
So
and he got fired. He got fired.
Well, his time in Philly was done because he was losing all his players.
That would be like
Michael Vick can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy. Alex Smith is like a total.
Who drafted Michael Vick? Was that a head coach or was that a manager?
No, Andy Reid brought him in.
Are you sure that was only Andy Reid and not a manager?
It was pretty much Andy Reid. He went and sought Michael Vick because they did all sorts of stories about it.
You know, that's not necessarily a bad idea in theory too.
No, Michael Vick's great when he's healthy. He's great when he's
the
healthy.
same thing. RG3 is better than Michael Vick in my opinion by a lot, and he's been hurt this whole season.
Right,
too.
that's the problem with those guys is that they have a problem staying healthy because when you're that multi-dimensional, when you can run the ball like that.
But you wouldn't consider those guys on the same page as, say, Alex Smith, would you? Or would you?
See, that's the thing. That's the interesting thing is that he's a guy that actually he can run too.
Yeah, no, he's actually like the second best in the NFL right now in running the football, and he's also the Chiefs' second best running back.
And he stays healthy. The guy gets back up.
Actually, up until last week, the Chiefs had 0 reported injuries on the roster too.
Right.
That's 0.
Right.
8-0 team. That
helps.
Unbelievable, and that's why they're 8-0. They don't have injuries.
Well, and that defense is just lights out.
And,
I mean, they're front 7. Get to the quarterback. I'm pretty sure they
had the most sacks by a lot. Yeah.
They got guys who get turnovers. Eric Berry is a great safety. You guys, you have Jamal Charles, and through and through, special teams. Colquitt, one of the best punters
there's a new X factor
of our generation.
Brand new X factor.
And Dexter McClester. Yeah, he's a threat on kickoffs and punt returns.
No, I see it in the crowd every game now. They got the mixes up every kick. They're excited for special teams. Those fans want to see what's going to happen.
The great thing about Kansas City is they kind of remind me of the Ravens in 2000 when they had Ray Lewis, is that they were mediocre on offense. But because that defense was so good, that as long as your offense scored 21, 23 points a game, you're probably going to win because that defense wasn't going to allow much more than that. Okay, and for the first time on the bench, first of many times, it's our weekly game picks. We will pick the K-State game, 2 Big 12 games, a top 25 game, and an NFL game. And of course, we'll see who picks better.
It'll be 5 total games, and we're going to keep track of all the rest of the season. I know we got a late start, but we got.
And I'm going to have a better record.
Well, we'll see about that.
Well, we will. Let's start it off with what we just talked about. Let's pick K-State and Iowa State, and for tie-breaking purposes, we will say a score.
Just in case we tie for the week.
And I am recording this, so well, of course we're recording it anyway. So blah blah blah.
Very observant.
We'll try.
Okay. Well, I'll go first, I guess.
Yes.
Since you're introducing it, I think, as much as I do think this will be a close game, I think K-State does pull this one off. They have been consistently just a little bit better this season than Iowa State. Iowa State can win this game. They can. And I would not be surprised if they do. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Kansas State in a close game where Kansas State takes a 2-possession lead in the fourth quarter at the final. Like, it's going to be close all the way until the fourth.
Okay, what's your final score?
Let's say 31.
31.
To 21.
31 to 10-point game.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to go with K-State as well. I mean, K-State's at home. While they have both had close losses, K-State hasn't been blown out yet this year. Iowa State was blown out by Baylor. Of course, that was at Baylor. That always helps. But I think K-State's going to be fine here. But I think it will be close because that's just the way things have been going.
They both play a very similar type of game. So,
I agree.
So that does make sense.
One thing to look out for, though, against Iowa State that I forgot to mention before is that they got a sophomore wide receiver who is, I believe, 6th in the Big 12 in receptions right now, and we saw against Baylor that big-time wide receivers we've had some problems with. So I think that's going to keep Iowa State in the game. But I'm going to go a little more low scoring.
Okay.
I'm going to go 24-17.
All right, so it's a tighter game. Is K-State going to have that lead going in? Just looks close at the end, or are they going to?
I think it'll be close the whole way. I think it'll be. We're not going to know who wins this game probably till the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, second game is another Big 12 game. West Virginia visiting Texas Christian University.
Just had to say it.
That's their university's name.
I know.
That's what they. That's who they are. They're Texas Christian.
They don't even refer to this. It's always TCU.
Oh, well, they're also the Horned Frogs. I mean,
Either way,
they shoot blood out of their eyes. No,
we're not gonna use any of that.
No, they do. They put red on their helmets, and yeah, that's represent the blood. They shoot.
West Virginia, TCU, and this is at TCU. I got to go West Virginia here. I think West Virginia just has more offense going on. TCU is just so decimated with injuries. They're one of the lowest scoring offenses in the Big 12. I think West Virginia is going to be able to pull that out.
Well, that's a tough game too. This is almost like the K-State game because there's so many unknowns. They're both teams at the bottom of the conference standings right now. It's so easy for people to make their predictions based on where they currently stand in the standings. Like saying Texas Tech will beat whoever they're going to beat, or KU's going to lose whoever they're going to lose, just because they're at the bottom of the rankings right now. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you're going to have a team that isn't expected to win the game. And Texas Christian is at home, so I'm going to go ahead and pick them over West Virginia. West Virginia's Blues continue for one more week before they return to home.
So you're going with who?
Texas Christian.
All right. You know, it's kind of an interesting game, too, because these are two teams that weren't in the Big 12 3 years ago.
No, they're not. and they never would have played each other,
Never,
except
never.
for the fact that TCU was going to join the Big East.
All right, let's move on to game 3 of our picks. Number 18, Oklahoma State, at number 15, Texas Tech. Jeremy,
Well,
what do you got?
I just mentioned Texas Tech always getting favored because they are doing so well right now. They're undefeated. Did they lose to Oklahoma?
They lost to Oklahoma.
They did. Okay, so they lost the one game, and it was a close game. It was at Oklahoma. So they do have that on their record. And I've been a little wary of Texas Tech all year, thinking that they're just very fortunate of the record. You always often hear Bill Snyder talk about when their teams do really, really well, that they're not good, he says, they're just very fortunate. And I think Texas Tech and even their coach, as Cliff Kingsbury, has said, we're just very fortunate.
So what's your pick?
I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to win this one on the road.
You know what? I'm going to go with Texas Tech in this one because Oklahoma State lost to West Virginia at home on their own field, and I could have swore Benny Hill music was going to play during that game at any point because both teams played awful.
I also want to point out you picked West Virginia to win the game before this. So
Did I just say West Virginia?
the previous game was West Virginia.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
You-
Yeah, they lost. Yeah.
You used losing to West Virginia as
Yeah.
a reason they're going to lose this game.
Exactly.
All right. Well, top 25 game of the week is number 7 Miami, the Miami Hurricanes,
Yes.
at number 3 Florida State. A lot of people considering a national title contender.
This has to be the just the game of the week in general.
Yeah, and if you remember Miami 2 years ago when Kansas State played them, they were nothing. People were just like, they're not the U anymore. Well, now they're the U.
Yeah.
They're back. So, who wins this game? Game of the week.
You know what? I'm gonna go with the home field here. I'm gonna go with Florida State. I mean, they're right there. They have to know that.
And this is a Florida game.
Exactly. They have to know that they keep winning. There's a very good chance they can be in a national title game. I think they'll deal with the pressure better.
Yeah, that is the case. Florida State has constantly been in the picture and then just knocked out of the picture out of nowhere, seemingly. Usually it's like Clemson. Sometimes, rarely, it's some team like North Carolina that you would never expect. But they're always right there, and everyone says this is the year for Florida State every year. And then about 8 or 9 weeks into the season, they drop right off, and that's
So what's
why
your pick?
That's why I'm picking Miami. Because once again, same thing is going to happen again. I think it'll be a close game, but I think turnovers will be the difference, and I think Miami wins the game.
All right, and just finally, last game of our picks are
It's not college.
NFL game of the week right here. Ravens at Browns. These
Baltimore Ravens versus the
are
Cleveland
Browns.
Browns.
Yes, those are the teams.
Yeah, well, Cleveland's been doing really well this year. They're another team.
Wow, for Cleveland.
Well, that's the thing. They're another team like Kansas City that was just bottom of the rung, and they're always having those struggles, and they're always just kind of like a middle of the pack, bottom half of the NFL kind of team, and they've been doing well this year. So you got to consider
They still have
that.
a losing record.
You got to consider that. But on the other hand, you have a Baltimore team who was just in the Super Bowl,
Won the Super Bowl.
won the Super Bowl, had the Super Bowl MVP on their team. I think Baltimore wins this game. I think they win it running away. They just have more talent.
But this is a team that struggled. I mean, the the AFC North is probably the most up for grabs it's ever been because you have Pittsburgh that's in the bottom of the barrel.
Pittsburgh's not doing anything. In their division.
You don't have to worry about them. The Ravens are barely 500. Then you have the Browns.
They're a better team. You know they're a better team than their record shows. That's another team that you know is good. They're capable.
Well,
of winning.
this is a division that's going to be totally ran away with by Cincinnati. Cincinnati's going to easily win this division. But the Browns could actually be there. Think about this. The Browns could be playing for second place. They've never even been close to second place. They've hardly been close to third place. They've been the bottom
That's
of the
more a
barrel this whole
statement
time.
of Pittsburgh. Since Pittsburgh has been good for so long, that's more a statement of how far they've fallen.
Right. No, I agree
than
with that.
Than,
I agree
than
with that.
how well Cleveland has done. I don't want to take anything away from Cleveland, but this is the story. This is Pittsburgh's not very good.
I'll say this. Well, we're talking Ravens-Browns.
Mm-hmm.
If the Browns still had Brian Hoyer, because they were playing the best with him, I would say the Browns easily win this one.
Yeah,
but
there's just a lot of quarterbacks out there.
But then again, remember, this is a Browns team with Jake Campbell that was a point away from beating the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. So with that, I go with the Browns.
All right, we had a lot of alternating picks here, so this will
You're
be
going with the
interesting.
Ravens?
Yes.
All right. Now that's the last picks for us, but there's one more very important pick. His name's Cuddles.
He's a sports enthusiast.
He's mildly obese, and it's time for Cuddles picks. What's Cuddles gonna do? And it's the Cats. All right. K-State for Cuddles.
Yeah, no, I actually had him pick an Iowa State, so I'm really surprised that he picked the Cats. Well, I shouldn't be surprised. He's a cat.
Oh, God. Here we go. That's true. That's true, though.
No, maybe he heard our picks, and
I think that's
and
how
he's
it
cheating.
went.
So maybe next week we'll have him go first, and at the end of the season it'll be really interesting. If he goes undefeated, this might be the smartest cat in the world.
There's two things that cat knows: food and football.
And those are two things you also know. So you
Exactly.
guys
We're very similar. Very
Yeah.
similar. Oh, and read this.
The Manhattan Mercury.
I write for it. Well, that's it for our inaugural episode of The Bench. I think it went okay.
Yeah,
We're all still alive.
No, and you will see us back again weekly, and for all your K-State coverage and other regional sports coverage in the Midwest, tune in to the Manhattan Mercury's The Bench, brought to you by BriggsAuto.com and Commerce Bank.
All right, nice plugs. That was good. For The Bench, I'm Brady Bowman.
And I'm Jeremy Roberts.
Put us in, Coach.
And when the Apache helicopter was really a hot item, and to see some of the things that it was capable of doing, and watching the kind of the war game, so to speak, that was kind of neat. So, but anyway,
He's a very controlled quarterback, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. He's not trying to. Did we just blow our fuse?
Probably.